Hi, my name's Ben Rai. I am the principal of Seriously Trademark. I'm a trademark attorney, and I'm so excited to be on the Online Prosperity Show today. And what you're going to be listening to or watching is some great advice from myself about why trademarking is important to small business owners. Look out for tips from myself about how to create a unique brand and what to avoid, and also just learn about my journey into trademarking. And we have lots of fun during the session. So please enjoy and click through to watch the podcast or listen to us.
Welcome to yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show, where we explore the journeys of remarkable individuals who are making a difference in the world of business. I'm your host, Prosper Taruvinga, and today we have a special guest joining us. Ben, how are you doing today?
I'm very good. Thanks for having me on the show, Prosper.
Absolutely. Well, it's been a long time in the making, but finally we managed to get that going. And for those that are meeting Bean for the very first time, Bean Ray is the principal trademark attorney and the queen of trademarks in Australia. And Bean is here to share with us her incredible journey, her insights, her expertise, and everything else that makes her the queen of trademarks. Now, seriously, Bin, I'm going to have to ask, how did you become the queen of trademarks in Australia?
Well, interestingly, it sort of started out with just me making a poster, sort of telling the clients what my service values were to them. And on the poster, I thought, let's make it interesting. And I always wanted to wear a crown of flowers. So I created this poster and I put the Queen of Trademarks and I put lots of R's on it. But it was only just for a one-off poster for myself in my office. And then someone said, well, who made you the Queen of Trademarks? And I said, oh, I said, no one really. I said, a client of mine had said to me, oh, you do so many trademarks. You must be the queen of trademarks. So, anyway, the interesting story was I actually never really thought of myself as the queen of trademarks until I made that poster. And when someone asked me that question, I thought, yeah, well, maybe that's a good way of sort of telling people that I do a lot of trademarks. And so I actually a few weeks later, after having that initial discussion, went and trademarked the queen of trademarks.
Wow.
And so legally, I am the queen of trademarks because with trademarks, it is the protection of a brand, whether it's a company name, a domain name, product or service. A trademark gives legal rights to the business owner to promote and use that brand so that no one else can actually ask them not to use it because they legally own that brand name. So to cut a long story short, I am the queen of trademarks because I own the trademark for that brand. And it's like a slogan now. So thank you for introducing that.
Fantastic. Well, we're in the presence of royalty here. I mean, especially in the trademark realm, people genuflect, bow down to the queen. Now, obviously, Ben, this is something that is of interest to our audience. Like you said, there's a lot of legal connotations, especially when it comes to protecting your domain, your brand, and everything else that comes along with it. But also, it is a very confusing, part of business where a lot of people end up picking a name just because it feels good for them, but somebody might have already picked it up. Like somebody might think, oh, I'm going to start doing trademarks and then start calling themselves the queen of trademarks, not knowing that Bean has already taken that trademark. So could you maybe tell our audience a little bit about what it is that you actually do as a trademark attorney, especially here in Australia?
Okay. Well, I think before we go to answer that question, let's go back a little bit more and just understand what a trademark is. So let's go back to trademarks 101. Okay. So a trademark can be a word, a logo, it could be a slogan, it could be even packaging, it could be a shape. You can even trademark a sound. So, for example, let's use Coca-Cola as an example. So, Coca-Cola has a word trademark for their beverage product. They also have a logo mark to protect the visual look of their logo. They also have a shape mark. Can you believe that? On the weekend, Prosper, I went to my local market and I actually found an original Coke bottle. Can you see that?
Absolutely.
And Coca-Cola actually owns the shape mark, trademark for this bottle that you see here. So if you've got something unique that's in a shape, you can actually even trademark that as well as getting protection for the design as well. So this Coke bottle I picked up on the weekend. I'm actually going to repurpose it as a vase, but anyway. But because I'm a trademark attorney, these little unique bottles interest me. So I purchased it and it'll be repurposed as a vase on my mantelpiece. So going back to Coke, Coca-Cola also has slogan marks. Okay, so over the years they've got marketing campaigns, and one of my favorite slogan they had was maybe 10 years ago, where they had a campaign and they had the slogan "Open Happiness." And so every time you open a can of Coke, you were opening happiness. And they actually trademarked that slogan. And some of the more famous slogans of like from Nike, just do it. That's a slogan mark. Okay. Um, what else have they probably trademarked? And also within a trademark, you can trademark a number, a letter, uh, as long as it's unique and no one has other trademarked it already or have used it already. Okay. So so that is important to know because in Australia, you can be first to use and you are protected by common law because you were the first user of that brand. However, if you don't have a trademark, it's an unregistered mark. So it's actually better to, if you really value your brand, that you actually trademark it because it gives you the legal rights to that brand without any gray areas. Because if you have common law rights, you've actually got to then sue them for passing off, which is a much harder way of protecting your brand. Whereas if you've got a trademark, you can send the offending infringer a cease and desist letter. So it just makes it easier if you've got the trademark to, identify that you actually have the legal rights to that brand. And also with a trademark, what a lot of people don't understand is that a trademark registration trumps a company name registration or even a domain name registration or a business name registration. So prior to myself entering the trademark industry, I was actually working in marketing and I had actually started a few businesses myself prior to entering the trademark industry. I didn't actually know that just because often you think that by registering your company name, a proprietary limited name, that you actually have the legal rights to that name to promote that brand. And that is not true. The proprietary limited registration is really for the government to identify a company for tax and their structure and the way that the company operates, but it doesn't actually give you the legal rights to that brand. And I'll give you a great example, my company. So I'm actually Umbrella Projects Proprietary Limited, trading as Seriously Trademarks. And the business name doesn't actually give me protection, but because I own the trademark for Seriously Trademarks for trademark services, filing and registration and advice, I legally own that name now, Seriously Trademarks. Whereas before, the trading name did not give me any protection. Okay, so that's the difference. The trademark registration gives you the legal rights to use and promote that brand. And why would business owners want to own a trademark or know about a trademark? Well, imagine, Prosper, that when we start our businesses, we don't have intentions to fail. We actually want to build a business that that will do well, that will grow, and that will potentially leave a legacy, for the next generation. We also want to make money. We want to build reputation. And imagine, let's say you're, I don't know, 5 years down the track, you've started the business, but you didn't know that you needed a trademark to protect your brand, and someone comes along and takes your name. or copies you. Okay. So a lot of maybe other trademark attorneys or lawyers will say, oh, yeah, you'll be all right. You've got common law rights. Well, yes, that's true. But as I said earlier, you actually have to go to court or system to accuse them of passing off. Where if myself, with having Seriously Trademark as a trademark registered, if someone popped up to Seriously Trademarks today, and I've been trading for nearly 10 years now, I could write them a cease and desist letter and say, I own the trademark, I was first to use it, and they would have no reason really to not rebrand because all of the rights are on my side. And how are they going to argue that? So, and it's actually really important as well that just because you get a trademark, the owner of the trademark has to police that brand infringement in the marketplace. So there's no such thing as trademark police department out there telling people you're infringing on somebody else's mark. No, there's no regulator out there pointing out that someone is actually using your brand. You, as the owner of the trademark, have to enforce that brand protection in the marketplace. And that's why you find that a lot of the big companies, um, you know, every year, Current Affair in Australia has stories that talk about, David and Goliath battles of a trademark brand. And it's because of that a large corporation that has a brand that's recognized, they need to protect that brand. One famous case I remember, this was a couple of years ago, where Chanel actually asked a chocolate company in Adelaide, Number Five Chocolates, to stop using Number Five because Chanel has Number Five perfume, which they've spent millions of dollars promoting that brand. And yes, it's probably true that Chanel doesn't actually produce chocolates, but because that brand is so famous that a lot of people recognize Number Five as being a perfume, if you just said that. Okay. So, as a small business owner, when you're starting a new business and you're thinking of a name, my biggest advice to them is stay away from any big brands. Like, don't try to be clever with the name that people recognize. Just stay clear of a large brand name because ultimately they have the internal department, legal departments, to basically send you a cease and desist letter. And interestingly enough, they may not have a case to win in a court case against your brand, but they are going to drag you through the courts until you bleed money, and that you're going to end up with no money in your bank account, and you can't continue in the court case to win a trademark argument. So in many cases, a lot of the times, the big corporations will just ask you to stop using it, even though you're actually not potentially doing anything wrong, but they can have different legal arguments to just get you into the court system. And as you and I know, in the courts, only the lawyers win. Because there's always going to be a winner and a loser when you go to court, and court is very expensive. So to basically avoid that, you know, the small business owner should look at protecting themselves. And it's also important that, let's say, for example, you were first to use a particular brand. A good example would be, let's say, you know how Twitter has just rebranded to X.
Yep.
If you were actually a company that was X before Elon Musk became X, you're lucky because he can't really try to bully you into stop using your brand if you own the trademark and you were first to use it. So that sometimes can happen too, where a big corporation will rebrand and you would be unlucky enough to be similar to that new rebrand. And as the years go past, because the big corporations want less competition in the marketplace for that brand, they may want to take you on and just say, stop using it because we own the trademark if you don't actually own the trademark yourself for that brand. So there's many things why a small business owner should look at trademarking is really most of the time protect yourself for continuous use. Okay. For me, I mean, the reality is if a big law firm wants to use Seriously Trademarks, how am I really going to stop them? I can only really protect myself, continuous use, and really to outmarket them, do better SEO, do better brand awareness. Because ultimately, as small business owners, we don't have the funds to fight in the courts. So really, it's about continuous use of your brand. And that's good. That's good enough sometimes, Prosper, to do that because you've spent 10 years, let's say, to build, like I have, building the brand.
Yep.
If a smaller entity popped up just to piggyback my brand, it's easier for me to stop them because I've got the legal rights. And in many ways, I've chosen a name that maybe the law firms don't want anyway. It's a bit, Seriously Trademark. I can't really imagine a law firm. They like names with their surnames,
Absolutely, absolutely. No,
that's the trend in the law firms where they use the partner's surnames.
that's
So I've actually just chosen a brand that's like a consumer brand, and it's sort of outside of the legal industry wanting to take it. So in many ways, I've chosen a brand that they don't want in many ways, but I keep it because there might be another marketer that or someone else that's not a trademark attorney that starts up, and I don't want them piggybacking my brand. So
absolutely. I can only imagine because it takes a long time to build a brand, and if somebody just
yeah,
comes and sort of domain squats or just sits on your domain or just starts using your name in a field or an environment that has got nothing to do with your brand, especially these days with so much on the internet, you just want to make sure
yeah,
that your hard earned brand equity and also goodwill in the marketplace is not going to be diluted by somebody who has got ill intentions. Now, let's get serious about this now, Ben. I like your story of how you got started and everything else. So you started off in marketing, right? That's what you say. Your forte was marketing. Maybe just walk us through what that was like and how you make that transition now to say, you know what, I'm going to leave pixels and I'm actually going to start doing trademarks.
yeah. Well, I actually did a applied science major in computing and marketing, actually, as my first degree. Um, I couldn't code to save my life. So I knew that when I came out of uni, I couldn't really be a software coder so my first job was a sales and marketing coordinator for a software distribution company in IT. And that's how I sort of started in marketing. And I worked in that industry for, I think, 5 years before I actually went back to uni and did my master's of business and marketing. Because we all know, sometimes it's good to get that piece of paper to enforce your live skills or the work experience that you have. And so I did actually go back to uni to get my master's of marketing business and worked in the IT marketing industry for about, I'd say, 15 years before I had children. And in that period of marketing, I learned about brands. I was a product manager. I was a channel manager. I was a sales manager during those years. And what it taught me was that I was actually launching large brands into the marketplace because as a product manager, so I was very lucky. I was a junior product manager for mobile phone accessories. So I got to, sell genuine parts for mobile phones back then, car chargers, earphones and things like that. And then when I moved into IT, I launched Casio digital camera. I don't know if you ever had the Palm Pilot.
Yep.
Do you remember the Palm Pilot? Well, I helped launch the Palm Pilot in Australia. I was product managers, security software, Lexmark product manager. So I've done everything. Modems. Actually, I launched modems in Australia as well. And back then it was like 16 kilo, the speed was so slow back then, I think now it's huge, but back then it was like only 16 kilobits. Um, and I even worked with Harvey Norman during that time, helping Microsoft launch Windows 98 into the marketplace. So I was able to liaise with the vendors. That's who were the copies. I was working for a distributor. So I understood branding. I'd maybe not understood protection of the branding, but because of my marketing working in that area, I understood the importance of branding and what a brand name is and how you can promote and get reputation for that brand. And then I had my children, as you do. And then I had ran a few small businesses. In that meantime, I owned my own events company, helped the Abbotsford Convent in Melbourne launch some markets because they wanted foot traffic to their site. At the time, no one was going to the Abbotsford Convent, which is an art precinct in Melbourne. So they wanted events, so I helped them organize events at the marketplace at their site. And that was fun because that got me into fashion because it was a fashion market that I ran. I even went to fashion school, but then realized I didn't want to be a fashion designer because I'd rather be buying the clothes than actually cutting out the patterns. So that was an interesting part of my life where I worked in fashion for a little while. I even worked for a trims company that sold trims to the fashion designers in Australia, like Wayne Cooper, Colette Dinnigan, Lana Hill. God, that was really fun, actually. And how did I get into trademarks? Well, because I had so much fun during that time when my kids were little. When my kids went to primary school, my husband said, "I think it's time, darling, that you get a real job."
That conversation.
I think he, yeah. Well, I thought I was doing a real job.
Wow.
Anyhow, so that's sort of how it started. He's like, "Oh, darling, I think you need to get a real job." So it just happened that someone, a parent at the school, um, one day just said, I know someone that runs a trademark consultancy business. And I said, "Oh, I don't have any legal background." And he said, "Oh, no, you don't need legal background. It's only a consultancy firm, and you'll be a trademark consultant, not a trademark attorney." So this is a good point where I can actually tell the audience that a trademark attorney and a patent attorney, we are not lawyers. If you want a lawyer, you'll need to engage a trademark lawyer and a patent lawyer. So trademark and patent attorneys in Australia are not lawyers. We can deal with all things trademarks or patents to a certain point. We can't do contracts like licensing contracts, anything contractual or go to court, but we can deal with everything before that. And I'm happy with that space because I don't think that I want to go back to law school to finish more years and then admit myself to the bar. That could be another lifetime prospect. Maybe in my next life I could be one. But I'm actually very happy doing what I'm doing and I stay in my space. So that's how I entered trademarks, is that that company employed me because they wanted someone that had good customer service, that had branding background. Because when you're talking to customers, even though it's a trademark matter, you actually have to understand their brands. And so, fast forward to 2019, I actually went back to uni and got my trademark attorney certification. So now I am a trademark attorney. But what makes me a great trademark attorney compared to the thousands out there is that I actually have that branding marketing background early in my career. I actually understand and I can talk to branding agencies. I can talk to small business owners because I understand that branding background and I actually have the trademark knowledge now. And so when a client comes to me and they say, "I would like to be, let me give, Sydney dentist, let's say," okay, I will be able to say to that business owner, "You you don't actually want to be Sydney dentist because Sydney dentist is such a common term that anyone else can use it. You can't trademark it. Why would you want to promote the industry and not yourself? So do you understand? It's like when you do SEO and your company name is Sydney Dentists, that doesn't differentiate you to the next Sydney Dentist that's in the next verb. So why would you want to call your business Sydney Dentist? Because you can't promote yourself as being unique. That person is better off. You can still call yourself Sydney Dentist, but maybe something in front of it so that it becomes, interesting. So I had a client that was the same thing. I think they chose a suburbs name and then dentist, but eventually we helped them through brainstorming, guide them to a name that they really love, and now I think they're Atria Dentistry in the North Shore of Sydney. But being unique means that over the years, when they build a clientele, people can say, "Oh, go to Atria Dentist because they're really good." And then when you look them up on the internet, you can only find one Atria dentist on the Google search. So that's actually better than if you typed in Sydney Dentist. Well, which one are you? So that's what I mean about it makes me a better trademark attorney because I'm able to guide my clients to either a new name or discuss their current name and say, well, maybe it's better that because you haven't actually started yet to go back to the drawing board and think of a new name. Okay. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, as I mentioned earlier, a company name and a trading name does not make you, it doesn't automatically give you the rights to use that brand in the marketplace.
Absolutely. I quite like this story, especially the part that got you from the marketing to the actual trademarking, because that conversation with a husband is a conversation a lot of people have. And now it explains why you called your business Seriously Trademarking, because he said you have to be serious about getting a job. And you're like, I'm seriously doing trademarks now. And it just stuck. So,
and actually, it's actually the opposite of me. I'm actually not so serious. I'm not a serious person at all. So it's almost like, I guess, mocking myself because I'm actually the opposite of serious. But so yeah. So anyway, that name I've been trading as Seriously Trademarks for 10 years, and it's interesting, Prosper. A lot of times when business owners think of a new name,
yeah.
when you say a name, you go, oh, that doesn't sound right. Like it was like me when I came up with Seriously Trademarks. It's not real until you use it. And after a while, repetition
Yeah.
actually makes it a real brand. So when you think about Steve Jobs in his garage in Silicon Valley, when he first started Apple computers, I mean, people would have thought he was bonkers. Like, what's an Apple
What's
got to do with computers? You know? And
Yes.
can you imagine him in his garage going, yeah, it's Apple computers, and no one knew what Apple computers was. And now it's an iconic brand, and it's because he's got great products, it's got a great reputation. So I say to clients all the time, it doesn't actually really matter what the name of your business is, as long as you like it and you're consistently um, building a reputation behind that brand, then it will become a brand eventually. So it doesn't matter what it is. When you think about Nike, well, Nike is the same thing. What's Nike got to do with shoes? But I believe Nike is a goddess, a Greek goddess.
Yeah.
And what's a goddess got to do with shoes? Nothing. So at the end of the day, a good name is unique, and as long as you promote it in a certain way, and also those companies like Apple and Nike, they've got thousands of trademarks around the world. So once you become successful, it's actually really important that you do enforce your registered trademark.
Fantastic. I quite like how you've got this unique superpower of, helping startups, first of all, find their trademarkable brands, because so many people just go into the market thinking my name is going to work. Like the example you gave of the Sydney dentist, because it's easy and it just seems to be very obvious to the person that's, claiming it, but it's a lot of work eventually because everyone can be called a Sydney dentist. Now, could you maybe
Yeah.
explain how you are actually using this, experience in your brand marketing, in a way that other people would not be able to, who are in the same position as you are, because having this understanding of how marketing actually works and also having this trademark experience makes it easier for business owners to actually protect their brand right from the get-go. How else are you using this experience and expertise that you've got in combination?
Well, with the branding background, because I've dealt with so many brands, I instinctively understand how some how we can make an existing brand different enough. So I don't necessarily, when someone comes to me and say, I want this, and I'll do a search, and then I'll say, oh no, there's already a registered mark. However, if we just add this, or we misspell this, or we do this. So I've got to probably, because of being in the industry for so many years, it's like anything. You sort of know the in and outs of what makes something unique. And I often will then suggest it to a client. And many of the time as well, the client doesn't really understand. So I had one client years ago, she was in recruitment, and she kept saying, I remap people's careers, right? And she then had a different business name, and she's like, oh, it's really boring. I want something interesting. And because we had spent so many times brainstorming it, and that word remap kept coming up, and I said to her, why don't you call it remap recruitment or remap consulting? And she goes, no, no, no. That's used remap someone's career. But when I actually did the search, no, it's not a common name. It's common because she uses it, but not in the industry of recruitment. And when I actually did the search for remap, the word, it's actually got something to do with an engine, mechanic, car. So definitely I went back to her and said, remap is trademarkable. And that's something that she didn't know because she was using it all the time. She thought that word was not trademarkable. But when I did my searches and I understood how trademark works, I said to her, no, you can actually use remap as the brand because no one in your industry is using it. That word is actually used in the mechanic, like the car mechanic industry, not or automobile industry, not your industry. And so that's what I'm saying. A lot between trademarks and branding, I can marry up those two fields and be able to then feedback knowledge to the customer or the client so they can make the right decisions. And sometimes I might tell the client so many times they can't have the and they don't really understand because ultimately what you can't do is trademark a descriptive brand. So as I said to you, Sydney Dentistry, you can't it's best to avoid location.
Mm.
So names of suburbs, location. So even if you were, I don't know, Marrickville Dentistry, it's still going to be the same problem because you've got Marrickville, which is a suburb of Sydney, or even let's say in Melbourne, Camberwell Dentistry,
Or
that's a
something like
suburb
that.
of Melbourne. Yeah.
Right.
Um, the other thing is to avoid if you go on Google, this is another trick or advice that I can share with your audience. If you're looking for start a new business, best place is Google. So if you type in, like for example, let's use Seriously Trademarks. If you're starting up a trademark consultancy firm and you type in Seriously Trademarks, I come up. So if I was a new business owner, I would go, I'm going to avoid that because there's already someone using Seriously Trademarks. Okay. And I often also say to clients, because they often say, oh, okay, Ben, I found someone. However, um, do they have the trademark? And I go, okay, well, I'm happy to go and check if they've got the trademark or not. Then I go back to them, and this is more of a branding advice or comment. But why would you want to start a business that somebody else has already had a head start on you to building that reputation and that brand name in the marketplace. Why would you want to be the second user of that brand? Because what tends to happen is that you're going to have to spend more money on SEO because you've
Yeah.
got to then try to beat the person that's already used it. Secondly, you're relying on that brand being good in the first place. What if that brand is really crap and they have bad customer service or their product is crap, you know? Do you want to have your new business brand name associated with them or have any linkage to them? Why would you want to do that? So I always say to them, you're starting out. You have the privilege and the opportunity to start something completely new. And so therefore you should be different, you
Mm.
know, and I think often the case people are scared. They want to describe what they do, but why do you want to do that? If your product is going to be great or your service is going to be excellent, you shouldn't be fearful of a new quirky out of the box business name because you're the one that's going to build the reputation behind it. And you want to be the first to trademark it and you want to be the first to use that brand and you want to make that brand successful. Why
Mm.
would you want to piggyback on someone else has done? Because it doesn't make any sense at the end of the day. So I often become a counselor to them in terms of trying to get them outside the head of what they usually know, which is, the best way people are going to find me is if I have a descriptive name. So it'd be like you, calling yourself digital marketing agency. Like there are
Everyone
so
else.
many digital marketing agencies out there. Why would you want to call yourself that? Because all you're doing is promoting the industry, not yourself. So that's why it's important that when clients come to me, I give them guidance on both sides, the branding as well as the trademark expertise.
Absolutely. And who are the sort of people or businesses that you primarily work with? And, what sort of business can come to you, or what stage does a business need to be in order to start being serious about their trademark?
Okay. So when you're starting out, it's good to see someone like me. So it doesn't have to be me, it could be another trademark attorney. But as I said, the uniqueness of my service is that um, when you give me a name and you're just starting out, I can actually check if it's available or not as like a trademark to be registered. Or I also check whether someone else is using it at the moment in Australia. Uh, and one good thing about my service is for companies that have have dreams of expanding overseas. Okay, because I had a nightmare client years ago. Not nightmare in the sense that they were not a good client. Nightmare in the sense that they had a brand of um, a toy, and they didn't tell me they were going overseas at the time. And so we were able to I helped them with their trademark because they actually applied for it themselves. They didn't get it. And then I actually then helped them get it over the line. But what they failed to tell me was that they were planning to go overseas, UK and the US. So years later, after they've been successful in Australia, they wanted to go to the UK. And unfortunately, that name was, I think, owned by Lego or something. And so I was like, no, I don't think you want to use that name in the UK. You get sued by Lego. And
Mm.
so then we came up with a new name for the UK market. The same toy, but a new name, able to get trademark there. And then they went, oh, and we went to go to the US now. And you wouldn't believe it, both the UK name and the Australian name were not available in the US. So then a new name came. So the same toy with three different brand names. So that's what I'm saying. It was a nightmare situation where if that client came to me at the very beginning, I would have been able to say to them, let's find a name that is trademarkable in three countries because I'm able to search in the international trademark database. So it's really important that if you're going overseas, that you actually do find a very unique name for those three countries, because just because you get a trademark in Australia doesn't mean that that brand name is available overseas as well. So it's really
Mm.
important that you do that. that you spend the time at the beginning to find out if you're going to be first to use that name in those things. And in those situations, you really need to be very unique. Okay. And so startups are good in Australia in terms of guidance on branding and names. And with companies that have been trading for a while and they didn't know about trademarks, the good thing about those companies is that they've got what we call evidence of use. So even if, let's say, someone already has a trademark before you, if we actually started the business before them, we're able to submit evidence of use of prior use, which will give the first user rights to that name as well. And that's something that we can assist businesses that don't have a trademark to obtain their trademark. And it's actually really important that existing businesses that are not trademarked consider trademarking, especially if they rely on Instagram or Facebook or any of the social media platforms to promote their brand. Because over the years, we've come across one client where they lost their Instagram account because somebody else had a trademark for that brand on Instagram, but they were not in the same industry. One was in deodorant and the other one was in clothing. Okay. So the deodorant company with the same brand name, similar brand name, wrote to Instagram and said, please take them down. We own the trademark for this brand. And Instagram suspended that account. And that account actually had over 25,000 followers at that time. How many years does that take to get 25,000 followers? A lot.
That's a lot.
Okay.
That's a lot. Yeah.
So in that situation, the only way of retain or to get Instagram to put you back up is to rebrand. So in that situation, it was worked out that our client had to rebrand. We then negotiated with the other party to get Instagram to reinstate that handle for a short period of time so that we can change the handle and retain those 25,000 followers. Okay. So in all else, the Instagrammers, the Facebook or social media people, if you've got a huge following and you've got a brand, you should consider trademarking, because put it this way, if our client in clothing actually had a trademark herself, because you actually can get a trademark in deodorant and you can get a trademark in clothing. And the only reason why they were able to shut them down was because the deodorant company also had a trademark for retail sales.
Right.
Okay. So they had retail sales and deodorant. But if our client actually had a trademark for clothing, Instagram could have reinstated them without them having to rebrand, because they both own the trademark, you see. But the problem was that our client didn't have a trademark. The other party had two trademarks. So see how powerful a trademark can be?
Oh, absolutely. And
so people don't really think about that. And, at the moment, even including our fees and government fees, it's $2,000 plus GST to get a trademark with us, and you own it for 10 years. So that's only $200 a year. And, that client did not spend $2,000 to fix that problem. They spent more like $6,000 to fix that problem. And 3 months of being offline, Prosper, 3 months of not being on Instagram for 3 months. So this is what I'm saying.
Loss of, even your brand actually loses, the trust that you'd built in the marketplace, because if you don't show up on social media, people would just think maybe you've gone out of business or things of that nature. And that's bad. Now, how can people get a hold of you and really save themselves time, money, and effort? Because I can see having to lose your life's work just because you didn't do a simple search. And like you say, it's only $200 a year.
For 10 years. Yeah. I mean, of course, you've got to pay that up front, but it averages out. How they can contact me. They can find me on LinkedIn on BINHREY, Seriously Trademarks. They can go to our website, www.seriouslytrademarks.com.au. They can ring us on 1300 118 123. And what? Oh, they could even look me up on Instagram. I'm Trademark Bin.
Yep,
So
absolutely.
my handle is Trademark Bin, and yeah, so they can find me there. But whether they use myself or someone else, it's just really important that they do consider trademarking their brand for the various reasons that I've outlined. And like anything else in advice, you and I both know that we don't need an accountant, but I don't know about you. I couldn't do my tax returns every year without my accountant because they're the experts and, they do it right. And it'd be the same thing with trademarks. You can actually do it yourself as well, but you need to know who's going to be the rightful owner, whether it's trademarkable or not. And because a trademark takes 8 months to obtain and knowing which classes to get protection on, those are the tricky parts. And basically, that's what you're paying for is the advice to be able to do it quickly for you and also to make sure that it's done correctly in the first place.
Absolutely. And for those that can't get hold of you on the social media, I've heard you do throw a good party while you're driving, listening to 80s music. So maybe if people are
I
on the
do. You
go.
might see me at the stoplight singing to Madonna or Wham. Oh my God, it's my favorite thing going visiting clients. That's the only time I sing because no one can hear me.
So people should be on the lookout to, be bobbing ahead to 80s music. What do you normally listen to when you're driving to your clients?
I like Wham a lot because I like sloppy songs. And actually, the poor kids, when they were young, I mean, the poor things used to be, um, a cap. They were, yeah, like they said, Mom, you always played 80s music and sad songs. Why do you do that? And it's just that I don't know. It's just I just love slow songs from the 80s. I think one of my like Madonna, Into the Groove. I don't know. I just love Madonna. Actually, I love Madonna.
Absolutely. Well, there's quite a lot that we can get from that, and the reason why you really enjoy this whole trademarking thing. And I quite enjoyed just getting a glimpse of your world and exactly what it means to be a trademark attorney, and especially being the queen of trademarks. Now, if you would maybe go back to the time when, let's say, husband was saying, it's time to be serious now and get a job and things of that nature, what sort of advice would you give to the Bean Ray of that time, knowing what you know now about what your life has become?
Uh, I think if I had the time again to go back, because I often wondered back then whether I would go back to marketing or into a new field. And I'm very happy to be able to go back and tell Ben at that period that you're on the right track. Don't be scared. You're learning a new skill. You can actually utilize the previous skills that you had, which was marketing and customer service. And really, the advice for any, I guess, working mothers or mothers wanting to return to work, or even business owners just that had a break and is re-entering, is you're never too old or at any one time to learn a new skill and also to repurpose the skills that you had before to be, to do really well in the new chosen career that you have. So for me, the journey has been good. I've been in trademarks for now over, I think, 11 years, and I'm loving it. And at times it's scary because it's a new industry. But I'd say to anyone, you know, just go ahead and take on the challenge face on and learn the skills and have fun along the way because ultimately we'll only have one life to live and we spend a lot of time at work and so we might as well enjoy what we do.
Absolutely. That was seriously good advice right there. Because so many people, they look at where they are and where they want to go, and they just look at it as a mountain they need to climb, not as a challenge or some expedition that will be actually fun for them to go on to. Well,
Yeah. I was going to say, and really, ultimately, if you're a business owner, you have the freedom to do, to go down various roads. And if you're going to do your own, grow your business, you need to protect the future, which is either trademarking that that brand, and also I also provide, I guess, insight that you should use experts. So in your field, Long Live Digital, if they need to grow, like get more clients, inquiries, they need to, instead of doing digital themselves, they need to outsource it. Like I said already, an accountant, don't try to be doing that yourself. I try to do that at the beginning in my business. Save yourself a lot of time. Outsource to professionals.
absolutely. You can never climb the ladder of success with your hands full, and neither can you go and give yourself a full cavity feel or things of that nature. So why would you want to do things that you are not an expert in? And obviously people like Bean are showcasing to you that you literally can have peace of mind by owning the trademark that you're working in without having other people infringing on your legal rights to trade with that brand. Now, thank you so much, Bean, for joining us and sharing your incredible journey, your unique insights, and a trip down memory lane. Especially how you got started in the trademark protection business and how you are now literally helping people moving forward. Now, to our viewers, if you're looking for an expert in trademark guidance, make sure you reach out to Bean Ray and her team at Seriously Trademarks. And remember, if you don't own the trademark, you don't fully own your brand. So why would you be building on something that you don't fully own? Because somebody who has that trademark can literally come and take it from under you. Now, this has been yet another exciting episode of the Online Prosperity Show, and I seriously had a fantastic time with being here. Stay tuned for more inspiring stories and strategies for success. Bye for now.